been on these Zoom meetings. So everybody's bailing out at the moment because oh dear. I think there's only going to be 4 or 5 of us.
Oh, I was just going to say, Sian was going to be late. She phoned me. But Sian's just joined, and Mel has given his apologies. I don't know if you've heard, but his cancer is a lot more aggressive than it was originally thought.
Well, I heard that he was going to start treatment. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's not feeling that good at the moment. So he's decided that best to stay away. Yeah. Hi, Sian.
Well,
you made it.
Hi.
Can't see you.
Yeah, I have confessed to not having read the documents though, because I was hoping to read them before the meeting. I've literally just got in.
I'm struggling to get the.
I can't see Sian at all. Can anybody else?
No, I can't.
Here.
There she is.
Oh, there she is. Hey.
You're in portrait mode.
Oh, sneaky.
Yeah, sorry,
I'm in cup of tea mode myself.
I'm looking for somewhere to put the iPad while I'm trying to read the minutes on my phone.
Gareth, where will I find the minutes on Teams?
They were sent out.
No, I know, I can't get into my email still.
I can post the minutes if you want to look at them. Not to
Sorry, not the minutes, the agenda, sorry.
I've just shared it. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see
then.
it.
You'll have to guide me through, because I don't have a copy in front of me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's all right. I thought you were struggling a bit, so hang on. Got to get full size now. They're still there.
It's still there, just needs to.
I can't see it.
Apologies.
Hang on. Let's share again because I can't see it now.
No, it's gone now, yeah.
Oh, go away, Pixie. Shit. Stupid cat.
All right. Sorry.
You just want to scroll up a bit. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. So we've got apologies from Mel to consider. Do we accept his apologies?
Yep.
I think we should. Yes, we haven't heard from Councillor Baker, I suppose, have we?
No.
I haven't heard from him, no.
Unfortunately, I think he seems to have disappeared into the ether of it.
Creations of interest.
I don't have a real interest, but as we're talking about ACS technologies later on, I'm just inform you that I am a customer of his.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Right.
And the only other thing is obviously as 20 Club, I'm the same as John.
Yeah.
We're users of the town hall, and the same as Paul. So.
And the same as John Palmer as well with the Christmas committee.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're all.
We haven't got Mel here, who's the impartial one in our last meeting.
I mean, we can put them as declarations, but technically, you know, it's just to play safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
But technically, you're not going to get any advantage out of them.
No, they're not. They're not
Dictionary or any way you'll get an advantage. You still have to apply the decision and what they are.
It's just something that needs to be known.
Yeah, but I'll put you all down under that agenda item just for security, should we say, or peace of mind.
Lovely. Thank you, Gareth. Now, the minutes. There's a discrepancy here, Gareth. I went onto the website.
Yeah, okay.
It's changed again now.
Has it changed again now, is it?
Yeah.
I had a comment from Councillor Mile that he was in attendance. He had initially declared he wasn't going to come, and I think I'd just popped that into the draft minutes. When I went back to the draft minutes and added all the other decisions, I'd left it in. So now I can quickly. Well, I won't share because I'll probably lose everybody. But if you're referring to Mal being present, that is now reflected, and I sent out a.
Well, no, the minutes you originally had on the website, which have now changed, recorded what I'm about to object to and that is the terms and conditions of hire and booking form. You correctly stated on the original ones that were posted on the website, and I might inquire why are we posting draft minutes on the website? They aren't minutes until they're confirmed, and that was that we didn't defer the terms and conditions of hire booking form. What we did was reject them because they were so muddled that we couldn't work out what was supposed to be going on. And it transpired subsequently that what you'd done in error, Mr. Thomas, was to send out the draft rather than an actual.
Okay,
and
that's
the other
fine.
thing was,
we can just say you rejected it to be considered at a later meeting. That's fine.
yes, and the thing was that we also agreed that we would meet to discuss both that and the seating layout in the town hall towards the end of January. And that was part of our what was agreed in the meeting, but that doesn't appear on the minutes at all. And in fact, the meeting hasn't taken place.
Well, we'll get to the meeting afterwards because there's no need. I'll explain that when we get to the agenda item, and perhaps we can cover
Okay.
that.
So
I'll explain why there was no need for a physical meeting when we get to the agenda item on the terms, because we're straying into that article. But
so my argument is that these minutes are not correct.
Okay, well, we can add those to the minutes. That's not a problem. As I said, we can add those comments, but I'll cover why the meeting wasn't required on the agenda item and the terms, if that's okay.
And the other thing is the date of the meeting on the minutes is the 1st of December, not the 14th.
Sure. Okay. Lost a pause.
And at the end of it, the meeting finished at 7:27, not 7:01.
7:27. Check the recording. Thought I got that from the recording time, but then.
No, well, actually, the recording stopped at 7:27.
Okay.
1927.
All right. Sorry about that.
No worries. So those, we can't sign those off, unfortunately, can we?
Yes, you can sign them off on the basis of those.
Oh, with those amendments, yeah?
Yeah, and I'll minute the amendment.
Okay, can I have a proposer then, please? Thank you, John. Councillor Palmer. Seconded.
Am I allowed to second things? If I am, then I'll second it.
Yeah, you can second. No problem.
Am I allowed to do those things? Pose and second?
Oh, sorry. Gareth did say you can second them, Sian. Yeah.
Right.
Second, that's fine.
I'm not sure about proposing.
No, I don't know either.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, reports.
Yes, I might as well keep this up and then we'll just run through it. As you remember, we were awarded this 4,900 and we got about 1,000 available this year's equipment costs. That's really why I brought this forward quite quickly, because we don't obviously have to get the grant immediately this year, but it'd be nice to spend some of the 1,000.
Yep.
So you asked to go out to tender, although we don't actually have to, which we accepted, and we agreed to just do, well, it's not tenders, it's quotations, because under our limits for tender, but stop saying tenders. So an invitation to quotes was sent to the two companies that you considered would be appropriate from select list, which was as well as ASUC technology, Orb lighting, and that's what the specification went out. At the same time, given that the network is going into the chamber, I asked for a separate quotation for the camera, speakers, microphones, etc., to allow us to move to hybrid meetings. And you can see the specification there. Data submission, we only had the one, which was from ACS Technology. So for the first element, for the wireless networking, he's coming in at 5,400, which is obviously with the grant offer and the current equipment costs, and there are sufficient funds available there. And then on the second conferencing webcam, he's come up with two options. There's recommendation for a group of 8 people. Well, we are actually 12, so and potentially the public would be there. Or the recommended for group up to 12 as spec with further expansion possible to 20 people of 6.5. And he said there that contractors point out once he believes the system is quoted then that option 1 will function acceptably. It's not the manufacturer's specification. And actually this afternoon in the conference I was at, we had a presentation from Logitech, who are the providers of this equipment, who sort of confirmed that the basic system is very limiting. And we also had a physical demonstration of it being used by Neath Town Council, where you could, it follows the speaker, or you can pan out to see the whole area. So there's much more versatility in the system. There's one up from the base, shall we say. Unfortunately, one up doesn't mean unless you're a little bit up in price, as you can see. But again, if you recall the budget time we made in the risk assessment, we said we'd like to move to hybrid, and therefore we did put £7,000 in to allow the facility. The other thing with the system, it is boot movable. So just for argument's sake, if we had to go to another venue, we could take it with us as long as there's obviously IT connectivity. So it wouldn't be fixed in the chamber, or if we had to go upstairs for something, or the annual meeting if we wanted to broadcast that. So it has got versatility. So those are the first elements on that, first 2 elements, networking and looking forward. Can I just
put in there? You say movability. A 65-inch screen isn't very movable.
No, but I mean we that will be on a trolley, so it's not going to be fixed. It's going to be on one of those.
That means you've got to wheel it out round the building outside.
Yeah, but if we had to a different location, and
yeah, okay.
So we could possibly use their equipment for that bit. Yeah, except having watched it, could have.
Councillor Hattie.
The bit that I'm looking at now, sorry, I'm switching between screens here. The recommended for groups of up to 12. That's 12 participants who will be speaking, I presume. The councillors plus clerk. You could have any number of people viewing because they couldn't participate anyway.
Yeah, it's down to the microphones and this ability to track the speakers. Otherwise, it gets confusing for people who aren't present.
When you say track the speakers, is that done electronically or?
Yeah. My understanding is you've got a pan and tilt and zoom little box. This lady from Jan Clark from Neath showed us, and she was sitting in the chamber.
Somebody physically has to do it.
Yeah, and she could pan out and show the whole of membership. But I think it does follow the sound. So that's why the size is important. If you have too many people in the room and too small a system, it can't work as well. It's also gone into CABMAL, so if, people could just check CABMAL's next meeting and see if they could log in there. So it is coming in, and the system cost Neath for Talbot to 20 odd councillors, just about the same price from a different provider. So that gives us some security that it's in the ballpark of what others are paying. It's a very neat little system. It's quite impressive to see it today actually working. So and the other advantage, of course, is they're doing it Neath. They're renting it out to other organisations. So if people want meetings, their facilities, we'd use it once or twice a month, depending on meetings. But we could have that as a rentable option to people who want to use it, business or communities.
Very good. Sorry to interrupt again. Sian, you've had your hand up, patiently waiting for a long time. Come on.
Yeah. So is that 12 different people in one place or 12 different locations?
No, that's 12 people in the chamber, which is our. So it would the second option would cover our requirements immediately, satisfactorily and with no hitches. The first option may have glitches. And it also allows the expansion, and I think expansion is primarily perhaps another speaker a bit further across the room to pick up.
So this is hybrid, you said, so that means people can dial in as well as people being.
Yeah. So you could be at the meeting physically if, for example, if Mel was not well enough to come physically to the meeting, he could join as a councillor from his home.
As one of the 12.
as a councillor, so he'd be present as a councillor on the screen, and then members of the public could come in, and obviously
as one of each one as one of the 12.
no, as
In
up to
addition
as
to
many.
12.
You'd use Teams or Zoom that was being used in.
Okay.
So you could have 100. We could have 100, and we had a launch or something the other day. There's 133 of us on a Teams call, Teams meeting, all visible if you wanted to. So that's the beauty of the hybrid. Yeah.
Are there ongoing service or maintenance or subscription costs as well?
Again, Logitech confirmed they do not charge for any upgrades, either automatically upgrade or the equipment. They don't believe in charging. I think they're charging enough for the equipment, to be honest. And then we also have, we already have a maintenance contract with ACS anyway. So it'd just be perhaps a slight adjustment to the monthly fee for that.
But there's no subscription fee to Logitech?
No. Once you bought it, you got it, and you get free upgrades.
Right.
Councillor Palmer, rather than John.
If you went for a group of 8 people, could you upgrade if it wasn't?
Well, yes, but you'd have to go to the next spec, which is
Pardon?
You could upgrade, obviously, but you'd have to, well, not upgrade, you'd have to buy the next level. I think it's something called, what was it called? I can't remember. There's certain systems, and then they go up in those batches, and there's one above that again. But I think really we should be looking at a minimum for at least seeing the councillors adequately. There's no point having 8 and then 4 people can't be heard or the signal doesn't work. We are 12 councillors. I accept John's, perhaps John in ACS. John is concerned with the budget, but fortunately we have put sufficient in next year to go for the better system, and it'll also future-proof it for the future, as I said. And it's also more of a viable option if you want a big group want to come in and hire it. We're not limiting ourselves to 8 people to come in. You could have.
Councillor Haddy.
On the face of it, 8 people wouldn't be satisfactory because we could have a situation, as the clerk's just outlined, where quite a few councillors wanted to attend. There were no cancellations, but one was somewhere else, and or you had a guest speaker or whatever, and you just wouldn't be able to bring them in, would you?
No.
So with 12, because there's 11 of us plus the clerk.
Yeah.
And that's the 12. That would seem to be the most sensible arrangement. The only slight problem that worries me is that when we went into this pandemic lockdown malarkey, you may recall that remote meetings were illegal, and the Welsh Assembly government restrained themselves from approving remote meeting for some time. Now they seem to have gone the other way and are insisting on it. So are we investing in something that is likely to be here to stay? Because what we really don't want to spend is £6.5 grand or £7 grand or whatever to discover that the rules change in 12 months' time.
It's definitely here to change, and as the lady in Leith said, they'd adapted. A lot of us moved with the new, the regulation in Wales allowed us to go remote in it, and England haven't got it now when they rescinded theirs, which they're very much annoyed about. As I said, it's if you just went to sound only, which is very difficult to manage because it's like a seance, that's a retrograde step now. We have Teams in our system. It seems to be working, one of the better ones for us. So we have the technology that end. This is just a matter of increasing our availability to the public under the new act. And it's as I say, we could just go to sound only, but I think that's a retrograde step, and makes the meetings a lot more difficult. So no, it's not going to be rescinded, definitely not.
Just as an addendum to that, we did have a good example of that on Tuesday of this week, when one councillor appeared without vision and just interrupted now and again on sound only.
Yeah.
And that was entirely unsatisfactory.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if I said it to this committee the other time. and I think members should look at that allowance, because that can be used to get yourselves all not all the members that'll be here. Sorry, I don't want to be too rude, but those that are reappointed. I think that allowance of 120 should be taken, and it should be used to make sure you've got good quality broadband to the house, and you can have that every year. And I know you think you're volunteers and everything, but it's a payment to allow you to do the job, and I think it would make sense for that to be used in the future if you want to upgrade to strong, super fast or something. But that's for another day. The final bit is that, unfortunately.
Hang on. Sorry, guys. Hang on. Can you just scroll back up, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Palmer wants to say something.
It was just my understanding from the Welsh Government was that they were encouraging, where possible, that people have this facility, that councils have this facility.
No, it's a mandatory requirement to allow people that are not present to at least be heard and hear the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to, as it says, I think it's somewhere in the legislation. Face-to-face meetings are no longer the gold standard. They want during the lockdown, One Voice Wales and Welsh Government did a survey, and there was an overwhelming acceptance that new technology had disadvantages, but had a lot of advantages in terms of people up by, say, disabled that couldn't come to meetings that were able to join, people with childcare provision who wanted to come to meetings could join. So the overriding view was, and that's why they brought it into the new act to formalise it, based on what the sector had said and from that survey. So that's how it became law to allow people not at present to be heard, at least heard or be sort of hear or heard. But as I said, that's difficult, as John pointed out. So if we've got the technology, then allowing people to be visible is much more better way of, hands up and everything. It makes it a lot easier. Right.
Okay. And 2 point. Oh, you've scrolled down again. Sorry. 2 point. Up again. There we go. That 2.7. That wired and wireless network. There's no mention there of the technical network.
Sorry.
The network for the technical, for the lighting and sound.
No, what we'll do is obviously, dependent on who got the contract, we'll make sure they communicate with each other, or would have communicated. So if you're happy that ACS can get it, he's aware of that situation, and he'll make sure that when he gets up into the lighting box or whatever it's going to be, there will be suitable connections and they will be compatible.
Actually, it's not suitable connection. It's a separate network that they need so that nobody can interfere with it, because all shows will rely on that in the future.
Well, I said, I'm not very technically minded on this. I'm sure we can get some way of having different. We've got
as long as that's been taken into account by ACS.
We've got office, we've got town hall, we've got council office separate. I don't know what they call them. Access, the different codes to get on.
So, these are all secure networks, I presume.
Secure networks. So you could have a secure networks for sure, yeah.
Without getting too technical, this would be it'll be a separate wireless and wired network, but with a bridge into the main network.
Yeah. I'm going to ensure that happens. It'd be quite stupid not to.
Excellent.
So as I said, the only other item is our little black Lenovo has died. It was refurbished and we purchased in 2017. It's only a 13-inch, used mainly to project at the meetings and occasional take home sort of jobby to get some work done. But now we're cloud-based, those kind of things aren't as as long as you file things in the wrong place, in the right place, you're okay. So again, under the regs, I've just investigated online and I found 3 of the cheapest at the moment for what is apparently the equivalent. But we've quite like Lenovo, it seems to work quite well. And as you can see, the cheapest after VAT, because obviously we don't pay the VAT, is from Lenovo Direct. So as you can see, after paying for the wired network, and it's all Lenovo. Yeah.
Just go back to those laptops. That's what I'm showing you here. just a word of warning, a caution rather than warning. This was £239. It's super fast, but the only trouble with it is the camera is down there.
Right. Okay.
Rather than up there, so you have to have your screen like that to get your face in. You can't read your screen properly. So just watch that when you're buying one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And as I said, by the time we've paid for the networking, the online project, there is still residual left in equipment to cover that cost. So the recommendations are having that out to quotations that we appoint ACS to undertake the Town Hall online project, which is the networking. And which one you want to pursue. You have to make after due consideration whether you want to go for a more expensive option to future-proof the system for the chamber as well.
Personally, I think that's the best option.
Yeah, and approve the purchase of the replacement laptops. We can go and order that as soon as possible, please.
So do we have a proposal or any amendments, a proposal, an amendment or whatever from that?
I'm quite happy to propose or second, depending on what people want. That proposition that we go for the most expensive option and the laptop direct from the owner.
And Councillor Palmer seconds. Lovely.
Thanks very much. I've got, well, we'll carry on with this. Probably easier. As you know, first of all, if I can explain, this is what I sent out after last meeting, after working out which draft was which. And excuse the big trees and things like that. I have changed that. I've got another version up, but I've got this one up. My because it's here. That's just a preamble, and I don't think definitions seems okay. And the reason I've come here is because of this, the capacities. Thanks to Sian, she sent a picture of what I thought was what I, how can I say it? Sort of probably misled you last time. I thought the layout that was put in for 20 Club allowed us to achieve more seats. Well, it actually didn't. So what I was trying to say is that we could have more than 164 seated. In essence, you can't, and obviously that's 164 seated, and that would be without an orchestra pit and the bar pulled out and things like that. So there are no changes required now to the capacities. They are as we've agreed in the past, and as John says, are way below the physical capacity in terms of fire risk. And actually, at the moment, we don't have 164 seats anyway, so we need to address that. But with the bar and things, we've usually got just sufficient. So that isn't an issue anymore, and I apologise for causing that confusion at last meeting. But then as we go through, I have
sorry, Councillor Palmer.
Yes, coming back to the definitions. There's just one thing that I like this setup where you compare them. I think that's very useful. The town clerk means the person for the time being appointed by the town council to supervise the hire of the venue. What are you anticipating happening?
Well, that's what it means. I mean, what essence it says is whoever is the town clerk at that time has that responsibility.
He's the one that goes to prison when the place burns down and everybody dies.
So it's the incumbent, isn't it? Because if I go, it's the title and not the person.
That's right. Yes, it's just mean for the time being, the person appointed by the town council to supervise.
Well, I said as we go along, we can, as I say, just hopefully we can edit as we go along, which would be nice. So quite happy to strike through that.
It just seems a bit, it just confused that a bit, really. I was confused by it.
Yeah, that's fine. So it means the person appointed by the town council to supervise.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. So we can, that's what I thought we could do. As we go through, any changes, we can do it here and now.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Haddy.
On the capacities, if you scroll back, there's, I don't think we have any problem with those, particularly the 164 seated, bearing in mind we don't have that many chairs anyway. you've rightly removed include staff, volunteers, supervisor, cast performers, etc.
Yeah.
However, it would be useful to include within it the maximum capacity of the hall, which is 340, I think, is what we worked out, wasn't it? For the auditorium now, because the balcony is treated as a separate room. That was my recollection.
Yeah, well, we've got balcony 100, auditorium then would be 300 standing.
Yeah, well, there's no indication for the hirer what the number of people, the hangers on, the lackeys, the people supervising, or the town the hall manager's staff, or any of the others. There's no indication of how many they are permitted, or is that something that we just assume is that it's going to?
I mean, we could turn this round, John, to say this does not include staff, volunteers, supervisor, cast performers, etc.
Yeah, but you then have to give no. Yeah, but then you have to give an indication of what the maximum is.
That you can evacuate from the building.
Now, the maximum you can have in the auditorium is 340, and that's based on.
Does that include
high risk
people on the
assessment.
stage as well and backstage?
That's what we're talking about. The whole of the downstairs.
Yeah, because you've got front of house and you've also got backstage and
yes,
cast, haven't you?
That's what we're talking about. The auditorium's different from the balcony. They're two separate rooms.
I mean, we could, again, to get around it, we could. This does not include staff, volunteers, supervisors, customers, catering, etc. Hirers should notify the town council of those numbers.
Yeah, that would make it.
And then we could say, "Oh, have you got too many now?" You know, if you've got a huge event, as it were.
Why not just say there's a maximum of 340 in the auditorium?
In the auditorium, yeah,
including staff. There's a maximum of 300 in the auditorium, including cast and staff.
Well, no, that's not correct. Because the 300 standing in the auditorium is the audience capacity, or 164 seated is the audience capacity.
Yeah.
Not the total capacity of the hall.
So then surely we just put there the maximum capacity for the venue are below, plus an allowable of up to 40 backstage crew or stewards.
But do you want to add
I just want to have an indication there somewhere what the maximum capacity of the auditorium is.
Yeah.
And that includes the staff, volunteers, supervisors, and so on. We're never going to get there, are we? Because let's face it, if there's 164 seated, which is what most of our events are, that still gives you, backstage crew, doesn't it?
Can I suggest that we put in here very much like
you could have
another column.
Yeah,
you could have a situation where we have a very successful Northern Soul Night, and you sell your 300 tickets standing or promenading, and then you've got six bands on stage, haven't you? Which is a little bit tricky.
So why don't we just make a backstage and put the 40 in there?
That would have to go next to the auditorium.
Yeah.
See, this is why we wanted a meeting.
Yeah.
Sort all these bits out, because we need to go through every point of this, because some of its wording is terrible, isn't it?
Well, this is the meeting for that. This is what we're doing.
Okay.
This sounds like a lot of legalese. Have you lifted this stuff?
It was Denbighshire's, and we've added little bits over the time. So it's and it unfortunately has to be legalese because this is what
it's designed so that when somebody dies, we ain't liable.
Yeah.
Could we not just put a total capacity for the building, and it's like?
Well, the total capacity for the building depends whether you use the auditorium. It's 340, but the total capacity for the building is what?
Oh, it's a lot higher than that. It's 300.
Well, the seated capacity of the building, the downstairs, the auditorium capacity is 340.
Yeah.
But that doesn't include the balcony, because the balcony is a separate room.
Separate, yeah.
Can I just ask what the without trying to I don't understand. Why is this? Is this for getting people out, or is it for another person? You know,
no, it's just so that we conform with the fire safety assessment for the maximum capacity for the building.
So that would include the balcony, would it?
No, because we're talking about the auditorium at the moment.
Okay.
The balcony is regarded as a separate room.
I see.
You do a fire risk assessment based on the exit size of exits and the number of exits. It's not based on the number of seats wherever you got. So you know,
it's a theoretical.
Theoretical. So we've got certain size doors, and then you exclude one door because that might be on fire. So you work out how many can go. So like up in the balcony, you've got 2. So that's why it's a bit lower, and that's all the seats we've got anyway. Downstairs, you potentially got 3 because you've got the entrance, the central fire escape doors, and the one by the stage. So you exclude the smaller one, which is the stage, and the other 2 take in. So that's how it's calculated. Now that's maximum. That's the so you can't go above that. We then have physical layout because you need to obviously. We have gaps to allow evacuation, safe evacuation. So that's why we get the reduced number of seating compared to standing. See what I mean? So if we just added 40 backstage, and I've got to include, you know, one.
I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough.
That's that's when they're standing. That's
for standing, but it's not enough if they're seated.
For the seated,
if you've got
the seated is different because it's the seated is 100. It's 340 minus 100.
Yeah, you're right, John. So that could be, we could put 100 there, couldn't we?
I mean, if the operatic are that, you know, you could have a cast of 40, couldn't you?
Well, you could have
quite easily, yeah. But that's what I've just said. If you get 164 seated in the auditorium, well, mental arithmetic's not my strong point at this hour of the day.
No, we've also got upstairs. I mean, so 2.
Yeah, could that say backstage and front of house? Can that be backstage and front of house?
Yeah. Well,
because it's door stewards, isn't it? So it is front of house.
Well, it's not. Yeah, for the seated, it's not 100, is it? It's
No, it's 150 plus.
It's slightly less than 100.
It's 100, 160, 166. No, 176. Is it?
264 off the total capacity of
164 of 340.
166. 176.
Yeah.
264 over 340 is 34.74.
No.
176. 176.
Well, you've got a balcony of 100 seated.
No. The balcony is separate.
No, it's 164. It's a 340 minus 164, which is 176. So you can have Rom choir and Rose choir there at the same time.
But if you had 176 people backstage, for argument's sake,
It'd be bloody crowded, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 164 seated and the balcony.
No, the balcony's not included. That's balcony separate.
No, it's total.
No, it isn't. It's auditorium.
Okay.
because you've got 300 in the auditorium already, so you've got 440 when the balcony and auditorium's being used. The auditorium is a separate room to the balcony.
But we've just put 100 in because I think chance to get more than 100.
Well, realistically, yeah, I suppose. I mean, yeah,
because
it's still below the maximum capacity, but it's a round figure.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, obviously, you're going to have stewards on the balcony as well, on the doors.
Well, on the banquet, the same would apply, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's just go 120. That's three more than,
Yeah.
Then
three times the standing. Okay.
Can I ask about the venue is licensed to host events and it goes through A to F, but it doesn't mention sort of weddings and see. It talks about banquet, but it doesn't. There's no provision in the regulated entertainment that I see. Perhaps it's somewhere else. I don't know.
That is our license at the moment. We'd have to apply if we wanted to do weddings.
Well, we have had sort of people sitting and eating in the past. It may not be a wedding, but it was certainly a celebration with people.
That's a banquet, though, isn't it?
That's a banquet seated at table.
That's right, but provision of regulated entertainment, where does that come in? I mean, is it mentioned anywhere?
Well, we've had cabarets with a banquet seating.
Yeah.
You could say that calls it in section F, because anything like that fall in like live music or recorded music.
Yeah, so you could have live music and people listening to it sitting at tables.
Okay.
There might be confusion here of a wedding license, and that's to perform a ceremony in there.
Yeah,
it's not about performing a ceremony. It's about if I wanted like Shem had his whole family in there to have and people sat down and they brought food in.
Yep.
That was a banquet. There wasn't any music. There wasn't any dancing.
You could sit 120.
Well, that's not regulated then, is it? That's not regulated. These are the things that are regulated.
I see. That's as long as I'm clear and I understand. If it's not regulated, then that's fine.
That's just people turning up having a private function.
Yeah.
This is regulated. So
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So do we have?
Can we just finish with this before we move on?
Too?
Sorry, Sean, what did you say?
Do we have numbers for private functions?
It's the same.
Say the numbers still apply because that's fire regs. That's not.
Okay, right, all right.
So if we said let's scroll back down. Let's deal with this one thing at a time. So we're never likely to have any functions that only use the balcony.
No.
So but they would. But the banquet, what are we going to set as the maximum backstage front of house for that?
120.
20, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Because that way it's an indication. People are never going to get that.
No.
But they need some indication because you could have multiple acts going in.
And you'd have catering staff and stuff, presumably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Right.
I like one-on-one catering.
So now the first suggested change.
Now that's my next query. This bookings will not be accepted for events over 12 months in advance of the date of the event and weekly recurring bookings 2 months in advance of the date of the event. Now, I need to refer you back to a decision that we made some time ago. In fact, we made it on the 24th of July in 2018, and that was to reflect that some groups, I'm not sure about 20 Club, but certainly the operatic, not always, but certainly on occasions, and I rather suspect the same will apply to the Fringe.
Fringe, definitely.
We will be making bookings for licensing sometimes 2 or even 3 years in advance. Added to which, will you agree?
Sorry, yeah. If we do that, the bookings may not be accepted. So what we're trying to do is stop people booking before we've had those conversations.
Well,
so if we delete will and may, that gives us the discretion to accept some and not the others. That should cover it, wouldn't it? Because if we know that your operatic booked for the next 3 years because of licensing, what we're trying to prevent is somebody else coming in.
Yeah, just coming in.
Yeah. So if we change it to may, not will, and the same for the other one is to try and get certain people that are being obstructive, I would say, that the cherry pick when they think the events, they think they don't have to come and put things on, if you know what I mean. I don't want to be too personal because this will be going out on recording, but it's to give us the flexibility to say, well, actually, we can't accept that booking that week because we've got rehearsals in, and the putting of chairs out, whatever, or a performance in, so clearing all the chairs just for an hour to put them back for the performance is counterproductive. So it'll give us the opportunity to say no, on that week we are fully booked.
Okay, well that would, as long as that's the case, and we must revert to the other decision which we made, and that is to review these dates before, as soon as the 20 Club know, and as soon as the operatic know, and as soon as the it's usually in the early part of the year, isn't it?
Yes,
we're not talking about the current year, we're talking about the following year.
Times, don't we? So that, if something is booked 3 years in advance, it's not into a slot where somebody else would normally be.
Yeah, well, we need that coordinating meeting, but obviously we've.
Yes,
Yeah.
the coordinating
Yeah.
meeting.
Obviously there's nothing
That's separate to this, but
yeah, there was nothing to coordinate at the moment, so we're into next year now anyway, aren't we? So we'll arrange that as soon as we can, and then so that would give us that flexibility. It's really the second half of that sentence is the one that we want to sort of have a bit more control over because of the problems it can cause.
Yeah.
As you've alluded to, having to clear the room for 1 hour for some small event, is there not much more scope for using the chamber for those sort of small events?
Yeah,
No.
If it's very small, we will. We've had yoga, we've had meditation in there. We do have some bookings.
Some of these dance groups have only got 4 or 5 people, haven't they?
Yeah, well, we could look at that.
And then you have to bring in the cost of heating the whole hall for an hour, which in other words means you've got to heat it for the half day to get it up to temperature in order to accommodate them for an hour.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes, it's only just occurred to me, coming back to the numbers, when we have when we've had the for the Christmas festival, we've had stalls. Is that contained in the numbers, or would that be an additional?
Well, we normally have 20 stalls, so I would class those. They wouldn't be visitors. They would be front of stage, back 40, wouldn't they?
Right.
So we did discuss this at the last meeting, and the conclusion we came to was that if you're expecting high numbers, then you have somebody on the door with a clicker, click in, click out.
Yeah, as long as we know, so it would be 300 plus the people on the stalls. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and if you can get 340 in the hall, you're doing jolly well, aren't you?
Yeah, with tables, you're doing very well. Okay, so I think the next change was just that this top A has been put in, which reflects the 3.4, isn't it? Maps doesn't want to work now, sorry. It reflects this bit so that we had bookings from other users. So when we're considering a booking, we would say, well, hang on, there's something else on in that week which isn't compatible. So again, it's to very much back to that element about having to shift a lot of stuff around just for, say, an hour's event or something. I think the rest stays. And I think this one has just been moved around a bit. All right. Copies here. I think that might have been deleted altogether because I don't think it's really appropriate.
You might want to put look at just a quick read of that. You might want to put in a passage saying that CCTV coverage could be anywhere within the building, basically the stairs, the auditorium.
Yeah, well, that we'll have to look at that. As I say, we'd like to put it on the external and cover all entrances and access really, and that we'd have to get permission ICO, and that we'd have to start putting. You've got to publish it, haven't you? You've got to put those sticky signs.
You just put notices up. That's all.
So I think that's a bit separate to this, and then.
But see, we did have internal cameras before, but we were told to take them down.
Yeah, I know that. That's because of the license, the ICO requirements of who was managing the system. We didn't know, but this what going forward would be have them on the corners of the building, so they're covering all our access entrances and a bit of the street as well.
Ooh, listed building.
Yeah, no problem.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Shouldn't be a problem. Security. And then this is just addressing the chamber can be available for use, which we've resolved before. Charging non-profitable users, but should be affect the other user organisation of Shelter Town. We have the right to charge. So if you have to move somebody somewhere else, if there's no hassle.
I hate to mention it, as we're going all singing, all dancing online.
Yeah.
Wherever we hold our town meeting, it doesn't really it doesn't matter.
Well, that's exactly what I thought, John. For the night, say operatic have it one. It's been a bit tricky before we've had to move. We just go online for that night.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be online every time anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, but I mean, we all just work from home, as it were, that night. So let's go back to this kind of a meeting. So that's the advantage as well. That's okay there. So that's been moved up to there, you see, chamber.
Yeah.
There. Highlands for the town amended response per someone whose authority to make decisions before on the day. Occasionally we get 2 or 3 people.
Can we come back to 6.2?
Yeah.
Could that include bank transfers as well?
Yeah, we just do what we invoice people, and on the bottom are our backs details. Most of the payments are backs now. Well, all the payments are backs. Well, no.
Do we need that? Do we need that clause in there?
It's just they know who the. No, I don't think you do actually, because you put it on the invoice, can't you?
Yeah.
It's an old. Yeah, it's an old. It's just a relic from the past, isn't it?
Mm.
When you told people to pay the check to.
These usually ring banks now charge you 40 pence. Well, they'll be charging us 40 pence an entry, whereas they don't charge on the backs.
Yeah. So the SEM one was to get a named person, because occasionally there's a bit of confusion. Yeah, sometimes you get a director phoning us, and then you get some front of house manager phoning us, and so it'd be useful just to have that person, and we'd require that person to be available. And another thing, not any of the organisations here, but if you remember when we had a bit of damage, those people in charge were drunk, so that person has to not be drinking on the night as well.
Well, there is a requirement for hall manager, isn't there? Who's actually live?
Yeah, it's just as I said. Sometimes you get a message or an email from somebody asking something, and then it's a counter message comes from somebody else. So it's just one-stop shop really with everybody with it stuff put on the form.
Yeah.
Occurred by any patron or else gratuity employed. So that's just, I think we just added outside contractors as well in there.
Is that what are we on to now? 7.72
now.
7.2.
If I just put it at the top. That's just adding outside contractors.
Yeah.
So when Mr. Keddy falls off the bell tower, having decided he's going to stick a camera up there, there's nothing to do with us.
That's it.
Good care of it. It's very much the same.
You can't fall out of there. You can fall into it.
The Highlands not do or permit others to do any of the following: take things off our walls, damage anything, and create.
More important is you put things up.
Cook food or have any naked flames in the venue. And then I think that's the same as their SEM5, much the same.
Just going back to those naked flames, does that exclude a gas cooker?
I think further down we've got the discretion to allow, because like we had that hog roast for Councillor Adams with his town mayor charity night.
Yeah.
So Abbey Farm brought in a hog roast, and that obviously was propane. But that was at express permission to allow that and a risk assessment.
Come on, Dixie.
Appreciate it.
Sorry, I'm being played by a cat that's decided it's starving.
Could you have candles?
We've changed all our candles for battery ones.
Yeah.
Yes, but if somebody else wanted them for, a cabaret sort of thing, would they be excluded? I'm not proposing.
No, it's a naked flame, isn't it? So they'd have to have those tea lights with them.
Okay.
Or
we can hire ours out, John.
If you had it contained in the jam jar, it wouldn't be a naked flame, would it?
Well, there's a potential of it being tipped, isn't it, onto the floor? I think it's an unnecessary risk, isn't it, to cause a fire by having any, if we're not letting people smoke in there.
Do you need to be a bit more specific there and exclude candles then?
That's a naked flame.
So there's no.
Okay.
Candles or naked flames?
Yeah.
Lit candle.
And I think I've moved it around, no parking the vehicle, and then I've moved the town council may in its absolute discretion employ police officers or other persons to maintain a tour of the venue. So that's possibly, if we're expecting something that might be a bit contentious, we could ask for that. And then added to the no vehicles there, only vehicles who have been granted permission from town council prior to the event will be allowed to access to the venue during the high period for drop off and pick up only.
Yeah, with that you've got that 8.1, 8.12, 8.11 at the top there as well. You've duplicated that.
12.8. Yeah, sorry, that. Yeah, sorry.
We just have to be a little bit more cautious when the Ku Klux Klan won't hold their annual event. We turn them down, then we won't need to employ the police for them.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about the area by the side of the town hall, and the police say, you know, what the school use more than anything. Now, we can't stop them using the pull-in. We can't stop them pulling up on the pavement, but that's more about, you know, if like again.
Well, we can stop them using the curtilage.
Yeah, so it's a curtilage there. So there's no vehicle. Oh, sorry, I did not mention that. I just deleted it there.
Unless agreed in advance.
Yeah, if the message is taken out there, it's not needed. And then that is going to be as above. So all that's going to change, isn't it? So reflect.
We don't need it in twice, do we?
No, it's already been dealt with, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so we'll delete that. Minimum widths. And then this is really just adding what was in a separate document in all these. We had an evacuation, and it seemed pointless only send 2 documents. So it's what should happen.
Yeah, that first part should be covered by the risk assessment anyway.
Yeah.
For instance, if we have a bomb threat, we have a code word. The after show party's back at my house.
Yeah.
If anybody hears there's a party at Ked's house, they know there's a bomb threat.
Yeah. It's just formalising it in there so people know. I said it's not new. It was in the document that went alongside with it, and just saying where the evacuation is.
Can we, on a slight digression, can we do some evacuation training for some of the groups?
It's being brave enough who we pick on.
It's a bit tricky, that one.
You know, we should really do it in the middle of a performance, because that's the true reflection.
Because we are required.
But I think we could do some more basic training as to how before you embark on something like that.
Yeah, Sean, we have a head steward with a fringe, and the head steward knows the evacuation procedures, and if we got any new stewards coming, is give him an induction, which walks them around the building, makes them aware of all the fire extinguishers, the fire exit.
It'd be great to be able to do that training though with all of the groups, so that we're all talking from the same song sheet or whatever. But just a bit of training.
Yeah, we did try and bribe the scouts to come in, and others, but the leader was a bit concerned that they might upset some people. He said you've got to evacuate.
But if we talk through the theory of it, even if it's just the theory of it, that would be a step up from what we have at the moment.
Well, Sean, with all respect, we're just evacuating the building in an orderly fashion, so people are just leaving through the fire exits without running.
Yeah.
So whoever's in your hall, being a steward or hall manager, whatever, as long as those people know where the fire exits are and the fire extinguishers, then you're pretty much covered.
Okay.
Yeah, I said I'm happy to see perhaps if the school, if I speak to Mr. Hatch, whether we could put on an event as a trial and invite invite all the steward type, all people with response, or head stewards, as Councillor Keddy identified, to be in attendance and just see how quickly we could evacuate. That would be useful. So I'll see if we can get that going. I mean, the scouts were a bit low, they said, because they were scared. I frightened the scouts. So it's some way of perhaps sixth formers, if we could get something with the sixth formers doing something, and then, I'll try and sort something out, because I think it would be very useful.
Are we leaving ourselves a bit open if we do that? What if it doesn't go right?
Well,
we reduce the capacity of the town hall.
Well, no, I think we just say, well, okay, we got everybody out in 2 minutes. That's pretty good. What went wrong?
Would it give us something to work on, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the counter argument to that, Paul, would be if we don't do it, which is the lesser of the evils,
Yeah, because I mean, you sort of need to allow for people in wheelchairs and things like that. And
no, you don't, because there's a wheelchair designated area for the fire brigade.
Yeah, I know, but if you need, the stewards need to deal with that and get them there, don't they?
Well, that's where your basic training comes in from our well, like the fringe training manual, for instance, for the stewards. So they know the muster point for the wheelchairs, which is by the accessible toilet.
Yeah.
But as Sean says, some might not know, and then you find it's
But
well,
I think
and then we can say,
it's more haphazard.
We can then say.
But then does the responsibility for that not fall on the hirer though?
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
Which
we
is
know
why
exactly what's going on.
It's
only when we, as a council, organise an event that we would need to worry about the rest of it, isn't it?
Exactly.
Let me research what the requirements are through the fire, whatever. I'll speak to fire.
If we resume doing the council sponsored Northern Soul music things, for example, incidentally, I don't know whether the float went. I presume it's still in the Friends of Llangollen.
It's still in the Friends of Llangollen
town hall.
Yeah.
The something like that, which is effectively a town council run event, we would need to organise it, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Because it would fall into our responsibility.
Why don't we have a practice run on that event?
Let's see if it's a statutory requirement, and if it's not, we can. If there is, we'd have to do one, and who would have to do it. If it isn't, then we, as Councillor Kelly says, it's part of the risk assessment for achieving each individual event, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Just added volunteers there. I changed volunteers from something, trying to see both 9.16, what was it? Said. Because not everybody's staff, I think, even with an event, they're not always staff. So it's both staff volunteers or volunteers, where it was said.
Yeah.
And then the other one, no alcohol to be stored without express permission of town council, and we'd like it in a lockable, secure container.
Are you still the licensee for the town hall?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm guilty of that. I haven't put doors on that cupboard yet.
No, we know, but you have got permission, and you are going to put doors on the cupboard, so that's covered. It's just we've had other people leave stuff, and well, again, we not that we're responsible for it, but it could be stolen, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just deleted as specified the higher application one. It's just obvious you got to leave 30 minutes after.
Get out of it.
And I think then we've moved that further down. Any property which will not be claimed within 14 days after the event may be removed, stored or disposed of by the town council. The proceeds of any sale should belong to the council. No loss or damage, again, in there, just belt and braces within bylaws. And I think the Data Protection Act has been brought up to date. And that's it. If there are like words on top of this, you feel that clarity, better word to be used, then certainly pass that on, because that's not necessarily changing the terms, it's just changing the clarity of the document.
Yeah, quite agree. Councillor Palmer.
A couple of ones, I missed it earlier. 7.7, enforce the maximum noise level. How would this? How do you do that?
Well, we wouldn't, but they've got to be aware that potentially it could be a complaint to. Let's see what it says. So
7.7.
Well, it's a high responsibility to show that noise level doesn't exceed these limits. There are limits set on it. That's why we have to finish at 12, because you've got people opposite, at that level. So
Well, I appreciate that, but it's a maximum noise level, and I wondered how you assessed a maximum noise level.
With a decibel meter.
With a decibel meter, and that's been done by the licensing authority. It's a licensing matter.
I see.
So it might.
If it's too loud, they'll come down with their meter, and they'll stand a certain distance from it and measure it, and then they'll come in and say, turn it down.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then what we're saying is that the council would support that, so we don't have noisy events. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, not noisy events, overly noisy events.
Well, within reason.
Yeah. Okay. Now then, stop sharing if you're happy. because it makes life easier for me.
And-
Yes, so as I said, if you're happy with those
Sorry,
alterations,
the other thing was about I think it was 10-12 about, you know, we're talking about raffle or whatever.
Lotteries.
10, yes, 10-2.
yeah, must not permit any collections, games of chance, sweepstake, lottery, or better in kind to be conducted venue during the event without the prior written consent of the council.
So it's just this again. If I don't know, the 20 club or whatever was there, you know, this use of cloakroom tickets, that's would be illegal, would it?
No.
It's not. No, I mean, it's just to say that, you know, if you're going to have a raffle, you should just let us know.
Okay.
Everybody has a raffle, don't they?
Well, they do, and that's why I was just clarifying.
But if licensing came in, they may well ask whether can I see your lotteries and whatever license, please.
Yeah.
Could that go in the booking form?
We could add please supply details of your lottery or whatever. If you said, yeah, that's probably better. Put it in the form a bit like if you use
it will be widely ignored. That's the only slight problem.
yeah.
But if it's in the form, then people would say, yes, we're having a raffle.
Yeah, but a raffle or any form, it's a form of lottery, and you need an annual license from Denbighshire. It's about 17 quid, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not per raffle. It's for the year, and
I think
most people don't have one.
I mean, with all of this, we're trying to say we're happy for these things to happen if you ask us. If they happen and you haven't asked us, it's not our fault or our responsibility. So there'd be no comeback on us as a town council if an official came in and said, "Oh, there's a, you know, they got a bingo going on in there," and I went, "So well, they didn't tell us." So and they are at the very top. There's a requirement to comply with all statutes and legal whatever. So it's very much just protecting the council rather than insisting they tell us.
Okay.
You know, if they got, as John says, if they've got the lottery's license or whatever, paid and wherever they can produce it, it's no problem because they're complying with what is required. If they haven't, the onus will fall on them, and we're not being seen to endorse it because they didn't let us know.
Okay.
So yeah. Right. We have to wait for John to come back to vote now, because Sian has got a voting right, so he wouldn't be quorate. I mean, Sian can vote, but it doesn't count. She can have an opinion on the vote. Right.
A handful of treats works wonders.
Cheats.
So,
have we got a proposal to accept that document with the amendments mentioned?
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and seconded. Lovely.
okay, brilliant. Thank you very much.